Welcome to part 2 of When is a model steam engine not worth rebuilding? A closer look at this badly made large twin cylinder model steam engine, showing the way that the big end brasses have been fitted, dismantling these parts for a closer inspection and also to remove the excessive paint that's all over everywhere. During this episode you should get the feel for how this thing was made. It was made by more than one person, quite clearly. The only good news is the original engine was made by a very good engineer, and then it went downhill from there, until finally I got my hands on it. Here are some clips from the original video. I've noticed that my voice even sounds different, because this video was made quite a few years ago. At the moment you can see me removing the big end brasses from the crankshaft. The big end brasses are quite well made, and as I'm looking at the crankshaft, that is also very well made. The thing that spoils it is the fact that the big end brasses are held together with random screws. I'm going to change this to studs with proper lock nuts, because it's fairly disastrous, even on a small engine, if the big end drops to bits whilst the engine's running. Looking at this crankshaft, I have a sneaking feeling that it's turned in one piece, which means that some real good engineers done this. Most people, including myself, and I must confess, would make a crankshaft like this in modular form, using several components to make up the crankshaft, then Loctiting it and pinning it together. This crankshaft is not made like that, it's turned in one piece, and you really do have to be a very good engineer to do this. To me it seems to be sacrilege to do such a bodge job on an engine when the crankshaft is made to such a good standard, and I look forward to seeing it running when I've finished rebuilding it. As I remove the big ends from the crankshaft, you will notice that I immediately refit the bottom bearing using the original screws. This is so the orientation remains the same, although sometimes I have found that they've been put on the wrong way round anyway, so you have to sit and match them up. This shouldn't be the case with this engine because I can clearly see identification marks on the bottom end of the main bearings. On the big end brasses we can see 2 lines on each of them, which means that the parts clearly do fit together. I'm now removing the bottom part of the main bearings underneath the engine so I can withdraw the crankshaft and have a close look at it. Also, I need to have a real good look at the bearings. If these bearings are shot, I will have to make new ones, which will make the job much more complicated. The only thing I'm concerned about is how many shims there are between the 2 bearing halves. It's a little bit excessive. Someone's been a bit over-ambitious, taking off some of the metal to tighten the bearings. Yes, a good engineer made this. Pity about the rest. As you can see here, there are quite a lot of shims on the main bearings, as I mentioned earlier. For the moment, I will just put the end caps back on in the right position and think about this later when I come to put the engine back together. Now I can have a close look at the bed plate, and it's okay. I'm a little concerned about where the holes are drilled in the mounting lugs, but for now we just have the bed plate with the main bearings attached, the main stanchions that hold the cylinders, and the cylinders, soon to be removed. And it's now time to remove the cylinders from the stanchion, but already we have a slight problem. If you look at the actual bolts here, you will see that one of them is broken in half. And the best way to remove this is first to tap it with a small hammer. Be very careful with this, you don't want to smash it. And once it's been shocked with the hammer blows, you should be able to get a pair of pliers on it like this and surgically remove it. So here I'm using the snipe nose pliers because they're not as strong as an ordinary pair of pliers, and it did the trick. The thing came out quite cleanly. The story could have been quite different, however. If the thing had broken off and stayed in there permanently, it would have made life very difficult. And here I'm removing yet another one. Same principle, tap the screwdriver, that will shock the thing and it comes out quite easily. And then I removed the cylinder and look what I found, an aluminium piston. This is definitely not the norm. An aluminium piston in a steam engine is not really good. And this looks like a recent modification to me. There is insufficient wear on the aluminium for these 2 aluminium pistons to have been in this engine for very long. As I'm going to fit a 2-inch silicone O-ring to each piston, these aluminium blanks will be fine. I'll just turn them down a few thou and they'll do the job admirably. One of these cylinders had studs protruding from the underside, and I don't want these in place. I'm trying to get them out, but they will not come out. They're just spinning round, so I don't quite know what's going on here. I think they're just stuck in as guide pins. There you see my little plastic box is getting really full. And here you see the pistons. Now the parts are all dismantled and on the bench, it's outside onto my improvised workbench with a tub of cellulose thinners to remove the paint. I try and use cellulose thinners like this, and I always do it outside, because I do find it far less nasty than paint remover. I just put the parts in the thinners, then usually I'll go and have a cup of tea, and when I get back the paint just drops off the parts. Especially on these parts because they don't seem to have been painted very long. When the paint is old and baked onto the parts, I will use an old toothbrush like this for quite a while to get the paint off, but it's actually dropping off, as you can see, very easily. So after a while, scrubbing away with the toothbrush, the parts become free of paint. And now I can see why they were painted. They were quite rusty and not very well finished. But nothing that some work with needle files, emery cloth and wet-to-dry sandpaper won't put right. In the meantime, I've cleaned up the cylinders, removed that horrible lagging that was on there, the mahogany stuff and the car body filler, and I've also machined the pistons to take a 2-inch outside diameter silicone O-ring. Also, I've been doing some work on the stuffing glands on the steam chest. Originally these were very messy. One was much bigger than the other, as you can see here, and it was quite a mess. So I remachined them to the same size, and they do look much better now, as you can see by the photograph. This engine is never going to be the best engine in the world, but it will run well when I finish with it, and it will be mechanically reliable, and cosmetically it will look a lot better than it does at the moment. In the meantime, I've cleaned up the cylinders, removed that horrible lagging that was on there, the mahogany stuff and the car body filler, and I've also machined the pistons to take a 2-inch outside diameter silicone O-ring. Also, I've been doing some work on the stuffing glands on the steam chest. Originally these were very messy. One was much bigger than the other, as you can see here, and it was quite a mess. So I remachined them to the same size, and they do look much better now, as you can see by the photograph. This engine is never going to be the best engine in the world, but it will run well when I finish with it, and it will be mechanically reliable, and cosmetically it will look a lot better than it does at the moment. There is a limit though. These are okay. If you look at the bad markings on this, these will come out with a needle file and some emery cloth, I hope. Plenty of elbow grease required. These are the piston rod gland covers, and they were made out of brass and very much a rattle fit. I remachined them out of phosphor bronze, which will be a much more hard-wearing material. What I'm having to do is copy these parts. I cannot make them to standard dimensions because each part is almost completely different. Looking at the pair of crossheads, they were pretty mashed up from years of abuse by people using screwdrivers and chisels to remove crank pins and things, and they weren't very well made in the first place, so I had to go cleaning them up, and the result is okay, as you can see here. Already the parts are looking much better, although I do think that the actual reversing lever will need painting, because it's not very good at all. At least it will stop it from rusting when you handle it all the time. I'll wait and see what it looks like when I put some more time and effort into cleaning it up. To conclude this video, I'm going to show a quick trip to Blackgates Engineering to buy some metal parts. And while I'm there, you can have a look round the shop. It's a one-stop shop for most of the things that I need. For instance, today I'm going in there to buy some cylinder covers. I don't mean finished cylinder covers, I mean cast iron to make cylinder covers, which they cut me off a big piece of cast iron. The larger stockholders just give you a funny look and they don't really want to be bothered with it. But Blackgates is fine. You can get all the fine detail stuff. Wonderful precision paints. Everything's very high quality, especially the castings. I've used many castings that I bought from Blackgates over the years, and I've never had any problems at all. You can get just about everything that you're going to need for the job here. Have a look on their website, www.blackgates.co.uk. You'll see all the details. There's a downloadable online catalogue, or if you want a paper version, that's available too. And that's the end of the episode. Stay safe, stay healthy, thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website. and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists, and by doing that you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists you can actually watch the videos back to back.